Lourdes, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you making time. In the strangest way, I think some people might think we have a lot of time on our hands now, but I don't know about you. I'm sure it's not true. I've never worked this hard. So I really appreciate you making time for this in amongst this moment to get some, share some perspectives and learn from you about your perspective on where we are running this magnificent ballet company, Miami City Ballet, which we all love. And I'd love to hear some thoughts from you about that. But so first, there might be people watching who don't know you. So tell us a bit about you and your role, where you are now, and your journey to get here.
Absolutely. First of all, Johann, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I will always make time for you and for the Arsht. The Arsht has a very special place, as you know, in our hearts, and we view you as partners in, I guess, partners in crime, so to speak. I was born in Cuba, raised here in Miami, and I left at a very early age, at 14, to pursue a ballet career, dance career in New York. I spent 40 years in New York. I danced with New York City Ballet for 24 of those 40 years, with under some great leadership, the genius George Balanchine, Jerome Robbins, and then later Peter Martins. And when I got tired, I don't like to say that I retired. I like to say that I got tired. I did many things after that, and I'm actually entering my 9th season. So 8 years ago, the Miami City Ballet Board reached out to me in New York, and they said, would you be interested in heading Miami City Ballet as an artistic director? And I jumped right in for several reasons. Number one, it's the city that I grew up in. I speak the language. There's an affinity that I have with Miami, from having spent my childhood here. Most of my family is still here in Miami. And then obviously it's the art form that I love and I've dedicated a lifetime to since the age of 6. But it's also the aesthetic of George Balanchine, which was my mentor. So the company, through our founder, Edward Villela, had that aesthetic. And so I felt it was a kind of an organic connection. I think that had I been offered the position in, I don't know, Alaska, I might have said no. But this one seemed kind of organic, and it fit. And so I'm about to enter my 9th season with Miami City Ballet, and it's been a joyful ride. It's had a lot of ups and downs. I'm not going to kid you. Nothing in the arts is ever easy. But I think it's incredibly enriching and it's incredibly rewarding. And I feel, and specifically, dance has changed my life, and it changes my life every day. So I'm here in front of you because of what dance has offered me, and so I understand its impact. I'm a product of its impact, and I have a real desire and a real need to give it back, to give back what it did for me.
That's beautifully put. Personally, as you know, I've said this to you before, I'm absolutely privileged to be this close to such a magnificent company under your great leadership. It's great to have you in the building, great to have you in the city, great to have you as a colleague. And I can just, excuse me, I can't imagine the impact this must have on your dancers right now. It must be, really difficult for you and them. Can you take us through the impact that this moment has on the company and how it might have impacted them and others?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for asking. It was huge, like everybody else around the world. It was abrupt, it was fast. It came in, COVID came in, and it was sort of like this tidal wave. It got rid of everything it left nothing in its wake, basically. It left nothing in its wake. So for our dancers and for the company, first our gala was canceled. Our performances, as you know well, of program 4 of Don Quixote were canceled. So 9 performances were just stripped. The school immediately shut down, so all those students went home, and we had to figure out how to keep them engaged, how to communicate, how to keep the syllabus going. And our dancers all, unfortunately, were laid off for 4 weeks. And then they all went home. It's been, you know, I won't even talk about the financial because it's all the arts at this point are struggling. But specifically for dancers, there's everything about how we work is communal. I mean, everything from learning how to dance, having a teacher in front of you that moves your body, that shows you physically how you have to, you know, place your head or your feet, to how we learn a dance with having someone in front of you, you know, closer than 6 feet, to how we dance together and to where we dance in a theater with people coming in. So specifically, more than any other art form, I think COVID has impacted dance greater, right? Because a pianist can still be in their room by themselves, or a musician, a painter, a singer, not a dancer. So it has been a whole kind of psychological mayhem that has happened because I've seen, and at least I feel as because I still consider myself a dancer even though I don't dance, everything that connected me, everything that Lourdes believed in has just disappeared. And so it's we've dug deep. I have to be very honest with you. We've dug deep to really encourage the dancers to continue their classes, to continue staying in shape. So we sent them Marley strips for home. We offer online classes, and it's I have to tell you honestly, it's less about physical shape and it's more about the emotional and the mental state. Because the fact that I'm even seeing you, that I'm having a conversation with another human being, it may not be the same, but it's close enough. It shows me that someone cares. It shows me that someone is listening. So we have meetings with the dancers. We communicate. It's very, very hard. The school actually did a miraculous thing, the Miami City Ballet School, because our artistic director, Arantxa Ochoa, she basically transitioned the entire curriculum to online. So we offered 108 classes are now being offered online. And there's some interesting aspects of it. Not only are they taking their little bars at home and they're being, focused on all that, but she's also introducing ballet history and music history. And so they're to take up these hours. And so they're watching videos together. They're learning about great composers, about great artists, about great choreographers. So there are parts of this whole crisis that I'm looking at, that we're looking at, and we're thinking it might be interesting to keep, right? It might be interesting to keep those hours of learning about the history that you belong to, and critiquing the changes of that dance has happened, the interpretation of two different artists. These are things that are not necessarily taught in a ballet school. But I'm thinking this, it might be an interesting thing to keep. So it's a struggle. But we stay hopeful as artists always, because it deals with humanity, and I have tremendous hope for humanity.
Well, I love you ending on that note, because as I said in the beginning, I cannot imagine being a dancer and almost literally losing your voice in a way during this time. But I do know their innate creativity is just bubbling and is never going to give up. The one thing I've learned from being around dance companies all my life is the incredible resilience and the never give up and do whatever it takes, and the incredible dedication with no limits to the art and to communicate through their movement. And so I'm wondering, during this time when all of us are in this almost inhuman state, what is the role that you think that artists can and should still play during this time?
Johann, I think, and I don't mean to be light about this, because I believe this deeply. It's in my DNA, it's in my core. I believe the arts always have a role to play in any environment. I think artists have a role to play in any environment. So I can't say more so now than ever. Art is about humanity. It's created by humans. And as long as humans are on this world, we will have art. It may look different. It may sound different. It may feel different. But that's okay. That's okay. So, the arts are here. They teach us about who we are, about where we're going. They teach us about humanity. They teach us about grace. They teach us about compassion. They teach us about love, about tragedy, and about enlightenment. So I have, again, tremendous faith that we will persevere and see the other side of this. Again, you know, there's I often think of, you know, we're so used to putting things in place now, and this is what we want to do now. But there's a real responsibility, I feel, about what the world looks like post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be a post-COVID. So I feel like we have to take responsibility for that now.
Mm.
And so what does that mean? And for me, it means making sure that the arts continue in some fashion. And yes, it's not going to be what I'm used to, right? Maybe for a while, because I do think that we're going to come back to the theaters. Humans by nature want to be with other people. But it's our responsibility now to figure out this transitional period and to continue to do what we do at a granular level, the impact that we make, the joy that we bring, the happiness, the things that we teach, the elements about life that we teach. And so that for me is what during this transitional time we're trying to figure out. And what's fabulous is that you think that the arts, we are all about coming together and now we can't. And yet we've seen more creativity. I've seen more things, you know, done online. I've seen more artists come forward. I've seen more artists reach out. It's like, it's really inspiring. And I think those are the stories that have to be told, and not the negative side of things dying and things disappearing and never coming back. That's just not going to happen. So, I don't know if I answered your question.
Of course you did. And, you know, compared to history, we now have this incredible tool, you know, that you and I are communicating with, and that artists can still communicate with, despite what's happening outside our front door, which wasn't the case, you know, a few years ago, a few decades ago. And so a new tool is in the hands of artists, which I can see they're making incredible use of, and we're all benefiting. I cannot imagine this moment without the ability to listen to music in my house, or watch a nice movie in my house, or read a book in my house, all of which is art coming to my rescue in my home. If you take all of that away from every family's home right now, oh my goodness, this would be intolerable. So
it would be intolerable. And it's not that we're going to use technology to replace what we do, who we are. It's to enhance it. It's just to enhance what we do. So I'm very grateful for technology.
So let's go there. Let's take this incredibly pleasant leap and say we're jumping to the other side of this moment, and we're out the other side, and we're back to I guess a new normal. What do you think our role as artists? I mean, after so many historic crises like wars, world wars, the arts were often the first thing that communities would reach out to. They built theaters, they, you know, just to celebrate life again. How do you see the arts on the other side of this? What's the role we can play there?
I think we're going to play very much the role that we play now. And I agree with you that people, when this is over, and it will be over, that people are going to jump to want to go out, to want to celebrate life, to get out and feel that freedom, right? Because this is also, we're imprisoned at this point, to feel that freedom that we had before this hit us. I think one of the most interesting things for me is to see how much part of technology we actually keep, and how we integrate that into the real live performance. So let me give you an example. So we've put together, which is about to go out, I commissioned a young choreographer who's part of our Blaze program at the Arsht for next season. His name is Durante Versola, and I commissioned him to create a work online. And I said, but I want this work to be a tribute and dedicated to our frontline heroes, to our service providers out there. And I said, and he's in Kansas. And I said, you can choreograph, little sections to each of the 4 dancers. And then we'll bring each of the dancers into the studio separately, completely separately. We'll film them, and then you can do your post-production work. What I saw yesterday was in the first draft two dancers, right, that were not in the studio together, seemingly looked like they were, but one dancer was moving slow motion while the other one was moving to the time of the music. And I had a moment where I thought to myself, you see, that's one thing we can't do live. And so is there a way of integrating this? I'm not a choreographer, but I think there are ways, when I think of the art form, and of course the ways of reaching those that can't come to us. We're reaching the disabled or marginalized communities that can't come. We can now, think of a hybrid class where there's some students in the studio, and then there's some students miles away that can't come to us. So I think it'll be a very interesting, we're going through a revolution right now, and it's going to be a very interesting outcome, but it's really up to us as artists to figure out what this post-COVID is going to look like. And I really believe we have to start to put that in place now.
I agree. It's interesting that you used some of the phrases you did, like hybrid and so on. At the Arsht, of course, we're not a producing company. We don't have a group of artists that belong in the building, except from you, of course. But we're also talking about, a hybrid way of experiencing both live and virtual at the same time in different locations, and using the building in different ways. We have to think creatively about this interim and then hybrid phasing into a new way. And I think a lot of what we're used to will come back, but also a lot of what we don't know yet will be introduced. So I don't think everything we love is gone forever. I really don't. I think it's going to come back, but it's going to be enhanced and side by side with some really interesting things that I'm very excited about that's being developed as we go. So I love you talk about that.
I was going to say, please count me in to help in any way, shape, or form. And, Johann, I've often thought, what if we're performing a new piece somewhere outside of Miami? How wonderful for our audiences at the Arsht to be able to see it. So there's a lot that can happen. But anyway, I'm sorry that I interrupted you.
No. And I'm going to interrupt you by saying, if you want to record anything of a dancer on a stage, I mean, that's doable right now. Our venue under those kind of conditions is still safe, and we'd love to have be used by creative people like you and others in that safe way.
I will take you up on it. I had no idea. I'll give you a call next week.
Well, I could say my staff also had no idea I was going to say this. So I might be in really deep trouble, but I know that they really are willing to do whatever to keep creativity going in whichever way we can assist with our facility safely, of course. But if you're recording people one by one somewhere in a studio, my goodness, it'll be beautiful on our stage as well as an additional space. So maybe it's a good thing we recorded this. There's a contract here. So I know you spent almost your whole life being encouraging and being hopeful and full of vision around artists. But what do you say to your dancers now? What would you say to artists in general about this moment and about the future?
Oh, yeah. There have been, different things. There are a couple of poems by Maya Angelou that I love, and one of them is really that, without courage, you can't practice any other kind of virtue. To be courageous, to be hopeful, to be kind, to be compassionate, and hope. Hope and courage for me are really very important, and they kind of go hand in hand. Without courage, you can't hope. And without hope, you can't be courageous. So what I do tell my dancers, and I don't mince words because I'm dealing with adults, with young adults, and I think it's important always to understand the landscape in front of you, the environment in front of you. Once you understand what's in front of you, you can then make a decision as a human being what you're going to do to get past it. And that's really what I think artists have always done their whole lives, which is to get past the struggles, to deal with the struggles, to face the struggles head on, and continue to create and continue to move forward. So it is for me about the truth, and it's about encouraging them to just simply put one foot in front of the other and be hopeful and be courageous, because we will see the other side of this.
What a beautiful note to end on, Lourdes. I again appreciate you doing this, and your great vision around the arts and its role in community and society. Love to have you in this city and be a colleague of yours. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, Johann. It was wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for asking me. And we are here for you along with the Arsht. So call on us when you need us.
Right back at you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.